Can you imagine a time when the seas right off your own coast didn't belong to you? When foreign powers basically called all the shots, controlling the trade, the security, everything? Well, that was the reality in 17th century India. But one kingdom, against all odds, decided to challenge the masters of the ocean. This is the incredible story of the Maratha Navy.
And you know, this wasn't just a matter of pride, not at all. Foreign control of the seas meant control over, well, everything. It dictated who could trade, it determined who was safe, and it held the very lifeline of the coastal communities in a super tight grip. If you wanted to sail or fish or trade, you had to do it on their terms.
So that beautiful Konkan coastline, it was actually a landscape of fear. You see, it wasn't just one enemy, it was this constant pressure cooker of threats. You had pirates, rival empires, and these rising colonial ambitions all circling. To really get how amazing the Maratha achievement was, we first have to understand the huge, almost impossible challenges they were up against.
So, who exactly were these powers calling the shots? Well, there were three major players who had the Western Sea on total lockdown, and each one was a formidable threat to any hope of Indian maritime freedom.
Just think about this combination for a second. First, you've got the Portuguese, using their powerful navy to control all the trade from their main base in Goa. Then you have the Siddis of Janjira. These were fearsome mercenaries whose sea fort was basically impenetrable, making them a constant military headache. And, looming over all of it was the mighty Mughal Empire, the biggest land power around, pushing its influence out onto the seas. This trio of forces, they seemed absolutely unbeatable.
But one leader, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, he saw things differently. He looked at this whole web of foreign domination and understood a fundamental truth that pretty much everyone else had missed. Real power, true independence, wasn't just about the land, it was also about the sea.
This quote, right here, it shows such a deep understanding of how the world works. Shivaji got it. He knew that a kingdom with a coastline is always going to be vulnerable if it doesn't control its own waters. It's like leaving your front door wide open. It was a revolutionary idea that land and sea were really just two halves of the same coin of sovereignty.
His entire philosophy was built around this one idea of Swarajya, which means total self-rule. And for a kingdom on the coast, Swarajya was just impossible without a navy. It was a pretty radical concept for the time. You want to control your own destiny? Well, first you've got to control the sea. Okay, so how do you even begin to build a navy completely from scratch when you're surrounded by powerful enemies? The Marathas faced a massive challenge, but they didn't answer it with just brute force. No. They answered it with incredible ingenuity, resourcefulness, and a deep, deep understanding of their own strengths.
This was a huge undertaking. A real nation-building project. They sourced the best teak wood, super dense and water-resistant, from their own local forests. They started their own arms industry, building foundries to make cannons that could rival what the Europeans had. And this was brilliant. They turned to the local Koli and Bhandari fishing communities. These were men who knew the currents, the hidden coves, and the moods of the Arabian Sea better than anyone. They were turned into skilled sailors. And all of this was backed up by a brand new chain of seaforts, creating a whole network of defended naval bases right there on the coast.
And then, in 1664, a new symbol of this rising Maratha power literally rose right out of the sea itself. It was a stunning testament to their ambition and their unbelievable engineering skill.
This is Sindhudurg, the ocean fort, an absolute marvel. It was built on a rocky island in the middle of the Arabian Sea. Its foundations were reinforced with over 70,000 kilograms of molten lead just to withstand the fury of the waves. And its entrances were hidden, designed to completely baffle any attacking fleet. Sindhudurg was so much more than a fort. It was a bold declaration that the Marathas were now sovereign over the waves.
Now, the Marathas knew they couldn't just build bigger ships than the Europeans. It wasn't going to happen, so they didn't even try. Instead, they completely changed the rules of the game. They decided to outsmart their opponents with a revolutionary new strategy that was perfectly tailored to their home turf.
Okay, so look at this. European navies relied on these heavy, slow ships of the line. They were basically floating fortresses, built for huge open-sea battles. The Marathas saw the weakness in that. They built a fleet of smaller, faster, and much more maneuverable ships. Their whole strategy wasn't to fight head-on in deep water. It was to use their local knowledge of the coastline for lightning-fast raids and hit-and-run attacks. It was a classic case of strategy over size.
And this new strategy? It worked. It was devastatingly effective. The Maratha Navy literally ran circles around the big, clumsy Portuguese fleets. And for the first time ever, they truly contained the threat of the cities,
finally securing the coastline and turning the tables on the old powers.
But here's the thing. The Maratha Navy was so much more than just a brilliant military force. Its greatest, most lasting impact wasn't felt in the heat of battle. It was felt in the daily lives of ordinary people. It brought a whole new era of security and prosperity to the coast.
You see, unlike so many other naval powers at the time, the Marathas were not state-sponsored pirates. Their purpose was never about plundering or disrupting trade for their own gain.
No, at its very core, the Maratha Navy was a shield. Its one fundamental mission was to protect its own people, its own merchants, and its own economy from all those outside threats.
And the impact of that protection? It was absolutely transformative. With Maratha ships patrolling the waters, Indian merchant ships could finally sail without being constantly afraid of attack. Coastal villages were safe from raids. And with that safety, the local economy just boomed. The Maratha Navy wasn't just a military expense. It was the very foundation of the region's prosperity.
Shivaji's vision was so powerful and so well executed that he didn't just create a fleet of ships, he created a lasting naval tradition, an institution that would keep guarding the coast long after he was gone.
So after Shivaji, the Navy just kept going. The torch was passed to brilliant admirals like Kanoji Angre, who was a tactical genius and a legend in his own right. He grew the Navy into such a powerful force that he didn't just challenge the Portuguese in the cities, he took on the rising might of the British East India Company, and he often won.
Just think about that for a second. In an era when European colonial power was expanding like crazy, the Maratha Navy stands out as this powerful symbol of Indian ingenuity and resistance. It was a homegrown force that met the world's strongest navies on their own terms and carved out a space for itself through superior strategy and sheer force of will.
Ultimately, the story of the Maratha Navy is just this powerful reminder that freedom isn't just about the land under our feet. It's about securing your place in the world, both on land and at sea. It was, in every sense of the word, the roar of freedom upon the waves.